I'm Bethany Anderson of Bethany Heals, and if life's been lifing lately, then you found me just in time. This is a pause, a permission slip to just be. And before we begin, let me remind you, your healing isn't on a timeline. Around here, we don't hustle our healing, we honor it. Trust that your intuition brought you here for a reason. So let's drop into our next archive episode. Hello, loves, and welcome to archive episode number 8. Wow. How did I get here? A girl had a dream and she just went for it. I'm so happy that you're here. This has been a creative project of mine that's been a long time coming. I just never knew when it would actually come to fruition. You know, I was looking back at my journals from the past couple of years, and on my list was to start my podcast called Life.ing. And who knew all it took was to move out of my comfort zone to a state where I didn't really know anyone, to end a 4-year relationship, to finally get the push to do it. But that's divine timing for you. You know, you just gotta go with the flow and take the leap when you feel ready. Whenever you get the opportunity to feel ready, that is. Sometimes you just gotta do it. So with this archive episode number 8, I wanted to take it back, very far back actually, to the beginning. I was talking to a dear friend of mine recently, and she was like, Bethany, how do people know what you do or what you offer? Like, she loves to hear the stories and these experiences, but who is Bethany? And I didn't even realize that I completely skipped that chapter. Honestly, probably subconsciously with intention. I tend to be a very private person, and so I think this podcast is definitely bringing a whole new side of me that I'm not necessarily the most comfortable sharing. But I think it's important, because I think if you hear my story, it'll give you some background into why I am the way that I am today, why I'm a spiritual leader and teacher, and how I've been able to help hundreds of beautiful souls along their own life paths. Because I didn't just wake up this way. So here we go. I would probably start with growing up when I was younger. I moved around a lot as a child, probably every other year, every couple years, until I ended up in one place finally when I was in the 6th grade. And so growing up, I never really had that stable foundation where you grew up with the same people that you knew your whole life. That just wasn't my story. And I realized very early on, because I do have siblings, but they're all much older than me. They were out of the house by the time I was born, so I was basically raised as an only child. And so I learned very quickly that I could live my life one of two ways. I can either hunker down for the next year or two and just keep to myself because I'll probably be moving, or I can make the most of my situation. I can make friends, I can meet people, I can just immerse myself in whatever neighborhood or school that I end up in. And I chose the latter. And I'm so happy that I did, because I feel like that was my initiation into understanding other people and how they work and how they think. And growing up in so many different places, I met so many different types of people and was immersed in very many different cultures as well. And so getting to experience that as a youth I'm so grateful that I had that mindset to just kind of go all in. And I will say, as I'm moving through these different schools, these different neighborhoods, there was a consistent memory that I have. And I was egregiously underweight as a child. I was so lanky, so skinny, and I just remember being made fun of all of the time. I was so insecure about my body. I used to wear jackets on top of jackets and jeans and baggy pants and sweatshirts. And even if it was an extremely hot day outside, I would still have a long sleeve shirt on because I was so embarrassed and ashamed of my body. And I was tired of being bullied. And so I think that that really left a mark on how I started to behave growing up. And even within the neighborhood that I ended up in the sixth grade, where I ended up staying until I graduated high school, I constantly wanted to be accepted by anyone, by everyone. And I started to treat my friendships like family, and I would be all in on my friendships and show up as best as I could because I just constantly wanted to feel like I was a part of something and not the one being made fun of. And it still happened. Don't get me wrong. I was a quirky kid. I mean, what are you going to do when you are pretty much on your own at home? You're going to nerd out. I was a total Harry Potter nerd. To this day, I will forever be a Harry Potter nerd. But I remember as I moved into high school, I started to get into drinking because everyone else was doing it. And I wanted to fit in with everyone, and I wanted to be a part of what everyone else was doing. And that definitely started me down a path that I stayed on up until my mid-20s. So 11 years of my life was me sacrificing my worth and anything that I may have personally believed in order to fit in and to feel accepted and to feel wanted by the friendships and the people that were in my immediate environment. And that brought me down a dark hole. Don't get me wrong, I definitely still had a lot of fun, and I had made some friendships with women that I'm still friends with today. But there was always this underlying current of numbing myself. I don't remember a time where I wasn't trying to numb myself. I don't think I ever really got to know who the real Bethany was because I was always craving something to make me feel confident or appreciated or understood. And I never really did. It just makes me think about why I wanted to be understood by others so badly. But maybe that's something we all want at some phase in our life. I feel like now that I'm older, I could give a rat's ass. But, growing up, we do want to be a part of some type of community or circle or whatever it may be, just to feel whole. I'll speak for myself. That's how I felt. I wanted to feel whole, and I was trying to find substances and people to fill that. And when I graduated college, I went to school for education. I initially wanted to be a high school counselor because I had an amazing high school counselor who really kept me on the straight and narrow as best they could. And I'm so grateful for them. And I remember my college advisor telling me, you know, don't get a degree in psychology, get a degree in education. Because if you work within the school districts, you'll have a more well-rounded resume. And I'm like, okay, but I never wanted to be a teacher, not at that time. I really loved psychology, but I got my degree in education. And I taught for a little bit and realized it wasn't for me because I never saw myself going down that path at that time. And so after college ended, I was in this in-between place trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I've shared a little bit about this in a former episode where I thought I was going for my master's degree. I missed the application deadline. My college advisor told me the wrong date, so I ended up moving to Las Vegas to make some money until I could apply again. And that's where the path really started to veer, more like turn a sharp left. Living in Vegas was a complete whirlwind. I was working bottle service, I was working at the pools, I was deep in the customer service era. And I stayed waitressing and serving up until probably my car accident, actually. And even then afterwards, I was also a barista, which shout out to my baristas. I love what you do. Thank you for making delicious coffee. I will always compliment your milk. Baristas, you know what I mean. But as I was in this decade of being in the service industry, what was I surrounded by? More alcohol, more partying, more trying to fit in, especially because after I was working and living in Vegas, I moved back to Los Angeles, which is probably one of the most shallow places that you can move to in regards to being in the service industry. And so I'm constantly hearing how people judge one another, especially in LA. I'm constantly hearing how people judge one another. And then I start returning that back towards myself. So during this time, I'm still wanting to fit in. I'm still trying to find acceptance and to feel worthy of having attention of any sort. And I was so lost. I may have looked confident at that time. And maybe sometimes I even felt confident. But it wasn't real. It was a shell of me. Because I never knew the real me. What I actually liked, what I was actually interested in or passionate about. I knew I always wanted to help people, and that somehow got muddled into working in the service industry. But that wasn't where I was supposed to be in the long term. And so I remember when I was 26, I had gotten off of a shift with my friends, and I was planning the next day to go out to dinner with a bunch of my girlfriends. And I remember that next day when I was supposed to go out to dinner that evening, I was so tired. I worked late into the night, probably didn't go to bed until 2 or 3 in the morning. And by the time it was time for me to get ready to go to dinner, I hadn't eaten anything. I was just exhausted. But I went anyway because I didn't listen to my body at that point. I had somewhere to be. I had somewhere to show up. And I went to dinner with my friends that night, and we really did have such a beautiful time. And I remember when we were leaving that evening, just thinking, I'm so happy we all get to get home safe. Text me when you get home. And I get into my car, and I had been drinking. I thought I was fine. I was a mile and a half from my house. I get in my car and I'm driving home, and everything goes black. And when I come to, I realize that I've hit a parked car. And it took me a minute to realize and to register that I had just gotten into a car accident. And it only took me another minute before I realized that someone had got hurt. I just remember that night, I couldn't find my phone. It was somewhere on the floor of my car, and I just started yelling for someone to call 911, to call the police, to call an ambulance. Somebody is hurt. And I'm just in shock. I can't believe this has happened. And that is really when my dark night of the soul began, where I was given a full stop by God, by the universe, whatever you want to call it, to look at myself. What am I doing with my life? Why am I wasting it on all of these remedial things that mean nothing to me? That night, someone passed away, and others were terribly injured. And I had never experienced anything like this in my whole life. You know, I feel like as a teenager, you get into your trouble here and there, nothing crazy, but this was the first time in my life where I was in it. I was in it deep. And I had no idea what was coming next for me. And so over the next 2 years after my car accident, I immediately got to work on myself. I found a therapist within the week and started working through why all of this happened. Where did I go wrong? Where did the disconnect begin? And then I got diagnosed with PTSD, and then I got diagnosed with depression, and then I was working through survivor's guilt. And that is something I still work through to this day, survivor's guilt. But I'm so grateful that I found the therapist that I did, because they really helped me learn for the first time how to understand my feelings and my thoughts and how to process everything that was happening. Because I'm not going to lie, I was in straight up survival mode. I was looking at 16 years in prison for this car accident. And I think why everything just weighed so heavily on me, I could never imagine wanting to intentionally hurt another being, to completely destroy another person's life, their families, my friends, my family. This one decision, it didn't just affect me. And I never wanted to hurt anybody. And to have something
as terrible happened as it did, the worst thing that can happen. I just remember telling myself after my accident, in those first few days, I could either sit in this room and hate myself and cry and not do anything about it and just give up on life, or I can do something about it. I can live differently. And that just reminds me of that little girl who had that choice to stay in, to keep to herself, to just wait for the next change to happen, or to make the most of the situation that she was in. And I'm so thankful for that little girl. Because she gave me the fire to do the work. And so moving through and healing from this experience, taking accountability for what happened, owning my choices and all of this, that's where my strength comes from. That's why when I share the things that I do, when I take all these big leaps, it's because I've lost everything. I have been shredded down to my core, and I've had to rebuild. And I'm proof that it's possible, that you can start again, that you can choose to live differently. Is it easy? Heck no. This is work. It's a lot of work. Is it worth it? Absolutely. 100%. I'm so happy I didn't give up on myself. I'm so happy I didn't give myself a choice to. So I digress. As I was seeing this amazing therapist, and as I was working through my PTSD, I remember having some suicidal thoughts. Like, I didn't have a car at that point anymore, so I was taking public transportation everywhere, and I would just be like waiting at the metro, just thinking, should I just step in front? And that's depression for you. Depression is really, really, it's hard to get out of, because it's like this this really thick cloud where you're moving through life, but you can't see clearly. And it's really hard to think about anything else except for what you're feeling, especially mixed with the PTSD, where I'm constantly stuck in the past, reliving my accident every day. And so as I'm talking to my therapist about this, I remember him telling me, because he knew I didn't just want to be fully on medications. Like, I wanted to find holistic resources and ways to heal myself. And I remember him telling me, you should try meditating. And I was like, I'll try anything to get through this. I will try anything. What can I do? And he's like, you should try meditating. It's really good for helping you get present and to feel comfortable sitting with yourself and with your thoughts. And I'm like, okay, done. That next day I signed up for a meditation class at a studio by my house called the Den Meditation, which they're still around today. Jamie, love you so much. Jay, love you so much. They're the owners of the Den. They're absolutely the most amazing people that I know. And I remember the first class that I signed up for was an intuitive healing meditation class with this teacher. Her name was Catherine Schiff, who, by the way, is my mentor, who will also be on the show at some point. And I took that first class with her, and it was Meet Your Spirit Guides. And actually, we talk about this in the episode that we recorded together recently, but I just remember sitting in that meditation and seeing myself for the first time. Like the true Bethany, underneath all of the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment and the judgment and the self-criticism and the self-hatred. I saw me for who I really was at a soul level. I met my guides, my beautiful spirit guides and angel beings who were all around me that whole time. And I just remembered them telling me, you have work to do, Bethany. Your journey's not over yet. This is just the beginning. And I'm like, dang, guides, I am in my mid-20s. What do you mean this is just the beginning? But okay, I'm ready. Let's do this. And I never left this world of intuitive healing. I have been in it since 2016, since my very first class. I kept showing up. I kept going. I started with the level 1 certification just to heal myself. I moved on to the level 2 advanced. And then I finished the level 3 spiritual leaders and teachers, because I realized after having lived it for so many years and how much that it had changed my life, that this is something that I need to teach and to guide others as well. This is my purpose. Having grown up through just so many different shades of lack of self-love and self-trust, having moved through my car accident and dealing with the consequences of that, and having met so many women along the way that had shared similar experiences or had gone through traumas in their own life, and hearing their stories, I am the last one to judge anyone. Best believe. But I think that's why I love doing this work so much, and why I think I connect with my clients and my students so easily. Because I don't judge. I've been that person, and I've been around it for so long, and I just don't see the point anymore. Judging doesn't change a person. It doesn't make them feel any better. And I think that's something I'll always work through as well. I think judgment is something that you just have to have an awareness about and catch yourself when you're doing it and correct it, right? But my approach when working with my clients, with my students, whether it's through mentorship or teaching or anything like that, is to just listen. I'm just here as a mirror for you. You see, in this world of intuitive healing, what I'm doing is I'm reading your energy. What I share with you is what you choose to show me. And when we come in a space together where you can be truly seen for who you are without the judgment or the criticism, and not only be seen, but also to heal from what's coming up for you, that is transformational. That is life-changing. You know, I love what I do. And my 10 years anniversary for my accident is coming up in a couple months. And I just can't believe how far I've come from that little girl, from that lost young woman to the person that I am today. I would never believe that it would have brought me here. But I've really come to understand that when you are not on your most aligned path, you will either be nudged back or you will be drop kicked back. And I got the full on drop kick. I had to get dragged down to the depths. I had to get torn down piece by piece to rebuild, to really get to know who I am. And I wouldn't wish this journey upon anyone. But just know that whether you are on your path that feels completely aligned, or whether you are in a place in your life where you're feeling lost, you can find your way. Don't give up. Keep moving forward. Own where you're at in your life. Take responsibility for yourself. And do whatever you need to do to get back onto that path. You know, with where I'm at right now in my intuitive healing business and career, I used to teach certifications for intuitive healing, and then I realized that that wasn't where I feel like I could best support other people on their path. And I've just been collecting information over the years from the hundreds of people that I've worked with on what was blocking them from their most aligned self. And as I gathered all this information, I realized that there were these 3 pillars that kept coming up. It was clients telling me, I don't know how to connect with my intuition. I don't know how to trust it. How do I know what's my intuition, what's fear, what's doubt? It was the lack of confidence that my clients were facing. It was the disconnection from living an abundant life, and not even just abundance meaning financially or monetarily, but just being open to receiving what you deserve. Not from this lack mentality, or not thinking that you're worthy enough to receive the things that you want for yourself. And that was how Elixir was born. Elixir, my 8-week intuitive mentorship offering, I offer it twice a year. Actually, the next cohort starts next week on September 24th. Oh my goodness. And in this program, it is with a group of women, and we meet every week, and we dig into these realms of confidence and abundance and connecting with your higher self. And I've created this beautiful structure and pathway to guide you on a path back to you. And I was just reading back on the testimonials from the women who joined in my inaugural cohort, and who they were in the beginning to who they are now. It's just so beautiful and amazing to see how much they transformed in their lives and how much they changed their perspective on the importance of devoting time to the self and prioritizing the self within that 8-week time span. That's the magic of intuitive healing, and just all of the practices and modalities and tools that I've learned and studied along the years, is when you mold this into a clear pathway to the self. And if you really stick with it, like I stuck with my healing, you can absolutely change your life. And so that's where I'm at today. I have my private sessions with my clients. I have Elixir. I have a 1-to-1 private container that's 3 months. You're literally stuck with me for 3 months, and we are doing the work. It's like Elixir times 100 because it's 1-to-1. And that's my offerings. That's what I do. I see you. I work with you. We do the work together. And I help you get to where you want to be. So thank you for those that made it all the way to the end of this episode. I know that there were some heavy moments in there, but I think that I just want to close with saying I don't regret what happened to me, because it needed to help me get to where I am today. And I think I'll always carry the survivor's guilt, but I want to close with something that I haven't really shared with a lot of people. The night of my accident, when I found out that someone had passed away, I made a promise to him. And I said that I would not waste my life, that I would make the most of it. And I would do everything in my power to not hold myself back, because now I'm living for the both of us. And that's probably what keeps me going, because I have a promise to keep. So I'm sending you all so much love, and I know there's so much going on in the world right now. It's so divided and filled with pain and heaviness. But I want you to know that regardless of what's happening outside of you, you always have a choice to show up for yourself differently. We can feel two things. We can feel sad or scared or confused, and also feel love and joy and experience beauty. We have to carry both. We can't just stay in the darkness. We have to balance it with finding the things that light you up, because that is what helps you move through these darker times. We need to have both. So my homework for you is I hope that you find something over the next week that just really lights you up. I hope that you take a moment to choose you and to prioritize you, and to remind yourself that you have a life worth living too. So I'm sending all of you so much love, and I just can't wait to continue our journey together on Life Be Lifing. And be sure to follow wherever you listen to podcasts, share it with a friend, rate me 5 stars, and I look forward to our next episode.